My guest today is Bobbie Knox. She is an entrepreneur, builder, and U.S. Army veteran who spent 8 years in the military before turning to entrepreneurship. Today, she is the founder and CEO of 320 Studio, where she builds companies alongside women founders, and the founder and editor-in-chief of Knox, an editorial journal exploring the future of entrepreneurship. She also hosts the podcast Not Here to Play Small. Her work asks one big question: what does it actually mean to build a company right now, at a time when technology, culture, capital, and consumer behavior are all changing at once? Bobbie, welcome.
And so when you talk about customer service experience, he has nailed it. We are in a new era of entrepreneurship, a new era, period. I'm a solopreneur. I have a CEO, a COO, an executive assistant. I have daily reviews with my AI staff every morning at 8 a.m. Not here to play small. I brought all the elements into my business, and I do that for other people. Thank you. First of all, Melanie, thank you so much for having me here. So my name's Bobbie Knox, and I am the owner of Bobbie Knox, my personal brand, as well as 320 Studio. And this, 320 Studio is all about helping women founders build their businesses from the ground up. So I have the greatest pleasure of being able to work with founders to help them with the idea to execution. So it has been such a great journey, but, for many years, I've helped women in so many different ways. It started kind of 10 years ago, where I was helping women with their goals. And it didn't matter what goal that they had. It could be about they wanted to get healthier, wanted to lose weight, or just wanted to become authors, wanted to build businesses. It just didn't matter what goal that they had. For 10 weeks, we would come together once a week for those 10 weeks, and we would just bring resources, to make their execution happen. And we would bring our gifts, skills, and talents to help each other, whatever we needed to help with. I would talk about goal setting and, bring in experts to help us along the way. And after that 10 weeks, it just became, oh my goodness, it gave me an adrenaline rush to be able to help these women on this journey and see what they really could do. And from there, I was hooked. That was kind of my passion, to be able to help women with all the different goals that they had. It was incredible to see them, actually become authors. Like there's one young lady who wrote her very first paragraph in that session. And now she has, I believe she has a couple of books that she's done now. So, we had a young lady who had a goal of wanting to go to law school, and now she is in law school and, doing great things. So, just the goals that they had were so huge, and seeing them like really make it come to fruition was huge for me. So it was a great pleasure. We kept going from there until COVID happened, which I'm sure that, COVID changed the lives of a lot of us entrepreneurs for sure. And I can remember being on this great mastermind session where there was other entrepreneurs there, and they were talking about, the transitioning, how they had to transition their business during that season. And we just once again, took everything that we had, our gifts and skills, to help each other with that transition. And I was so grateful because, I didn't consider myself well in technology then. And I was so grateful because I'm like, how am I going to go from in person to, now online? And during COVID, I don't think, Zoom and everything was so big at that time like it is today, but they really helped me be able to do that transition. Yeah, I want to help other people, bring other people together to be able to do that as well, So, I put everything online, got women together, and, we kept going. But I noticed during that time, it was a lot of women who had the goal to start businesses. I was helping women with all the other business goals that they had. But this one, during COVID, there were so many women like, I want to build a business. And it was for different reasons. Maybe their significant other had lost their jobs during that season, or they were like, I could be a stay-at-home mom, help my kids, support, my family at the same time. Or they just kind of noticed that they didn't want to, the companies that they were working for, they wanted to predict their own future, because they were getting laid off or they knew people who were getting laid off. So, they wanted to be in charge of their own livelihood. So they wanted to do something different. And it just started being a business thing from then, and I was hoping these women built their businesses from idea, just having an idea. Some of them didn't even know what they wanted to do, but they just, we kind of worked through it together. We came up with the idea and they started executing actual businesses during COVID. And once again, using our gift, skills, and talents to help each other out and just bringing in experts from every industry. We're talking about every different entrepreneur topic, and we just did it. So it just became a really good thing. And I think that's where I started, really just love talking about business and helping other women with their businesses. I mean, like, no matter what industry it is, I just love learning about, what people are trying to build and just kind of helping them from there.
You are truly a solid builder. What are some highlights that you can think of along your journey that really have stood out and were really instrumental for you to make the types of pivots and changes?
My vision, like for myself, I can speak for myself. My vision has always been big, and just really knowing what sitting down, really knowing what I wanted my world to be like and just really executing it, And I've learned I'm a military veteran. I was in the United States Army for 8 years, and that really taught me a lot too about being able to pivot as well, So, just not being scared and taking risks, just following your heart when you feel like something doesn't feel right or it's not satisfying you or it's not, leaning it towards your purpose and your calling, it's okay to have to pivot. So I've really been able to teach women how to do that as well. And, I think the biggest part for women is like that fear, what are people going to say when I have to pivot, or, how am I going to do it? Does it make sense? So just being able to really sit down with them and, listen to all their likes and dislikes and things like that. And just sit down, take a moment to step back from whatever you're doing right now and just really listen to, what it is that you need to be doing. And that's kind of how we've done it. That pivot, it is really hard. It can be scary at times. And, we kind of think about, oh, people going to judge me for pivoting, but you really got to do what makes you happy, because if not, you're just going to be living in a world that's miserable. And we definitely don't want to do that. So I think just having my own experience and like the business coaches, oh my gosh, I've had some of the best business coaches and mentors who've been able to help me through my own pivots has been huge for me. So, I always say that if you're ever thinking like, am I supposed to be changing here? What am I supposed to be doing in this? I always say, take a step back from what you're doing and just take a moment, because sometimes we don't do that enough. We just keep going and going and going instead of just taking a step back from what we're doing and really thinking about, everything that we're trying to do here. So in my own company, 320 Studio, I was trying to help everybody. And I was trying to help everybody with their businesses. But I realized, like, for me, that I really only want to help 5 founders per year with their business, because I'm the type of person, I like to do things in excellence, and not only for myself, but for others that I'm building businesses for as well. And I don't want to rush the process. Like sometimes I'm working with women entrepreneurs who are building brick and mortars, and it's just not a process that you brush through. And, so I just want to focus on 5 founders, give myself to them with excellence so they can have excellence in what they're building. Cause I can remember building my businesses, and sometimes I was trying to rush through it because like, oh, I want to hurry up and get it done. And, it fell apart, because I was rushing through it. I was rushing through my systems, the processes, not really giving it my all because I'm so in a hurry to get it started. So I don't want any other founder to feel that way. So that's why I'm only doing 5 founders. And like people have said, oh my gosh, you should be doing more. You should be doing 10. You should be doing this. But it's not necessary. It's really not necessary. The founder has so many questions that we got to go through. And sometimes we have to talk to lawyers and things like that because it's a lot to it and you don't want to rush through the process. So I know that I can do 5 founders and to make it right, to make this whole process right where I could be with them through the entire process. But, give them enough to where at the end of this process, it's theirs, and they don't have to depend on me. They don't have to depend on anybody else because they know it, like the back of their hand, every single process of it, part of it. So that's just where I come from. But, and I've said like a lot of people are like, what are you doing? You can do so many more. I'm just interested in working with, and you may not even have the idea yet, but I'm interested in working with people who are actually going to do the steps that it's going to take to get there. And so that's why it's an application process with me because you know when people are going to take it serious, right? They're like, we get on calls once a week and that person has homework from me and, they either do the homework or they don't, but I'm interested in people who's going to take it serious. They're going to do their homework. They're not afraid to take risks, because, being an entrepreneur, it's a lot of risk taking. And we're doing this together. I feel like sometimes I talk to people and, we have an opportunity to meet. They can't even make the first meeting, but yet they want to build, build a business and everything. Or they're like coming up with all these excuses and everything before we even get started, So those are not the people that I really want to work with because they're not going to take it serious enough. And if I'm going to spend my time and I'm going to show you everything that I know, because I've built several businesses. So, it's just like, why? If you're not going to take it seriously, then I don't really have time for that. You know what I mean? So those are the type of people that, and it doesn't matter what industry that they're in, I'll be willing to help them. But if they've got this, gusto to get it done and are serious about it and they're doing the homework and they're, taking all the steps, then I'm there, I'm right there with them. 320 Studio, we are just really coming together and we're talking about what it is that you like and you don't like. We go all the way back even to your childhood, okay? Because some people are like, what is it that I want? I know I want to build a business, but I have no idea of what I want to build. So we go back to your childhood. What is it that you liked? Because I remember someone doing that for me. And we went through like, I used to be a radio personality back in the day. So I was like, oh my gosh, I loved being on the radio. How can I bring some of that into my business? And that's why I have my podcast because I feel like that's a little bit of radio, so that's why I brought my podcast in, Not Here to Play Small. And so, I brought all the elements into my business and I do that for other people. Like, what is it that you really, really love? And we also talk about the things that we really don't like. What is it what don't you want to do in your business? So we bring all that in. We just come up with the idea. We build the business plan, and then we talk about the different strategies of how we're going to do it. The most important part for me, which a lot of people neglect in their businesses, believe it or not, is the customer experience. We spend a lot of time on that, on the customer journey. If you think about like some of the biggest places like Disney, for example, when you ask a person like who has the best customer experience, there's two places that come up, believe it or not, and that is Disney and Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A. So a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, they have the best, Chick-fil-A has the My Pleasure. I don't think I've ever gone to Chick-fil-A and had a bad experience. So we talk about that. Like with Disney, one of the biggest things, Walt Disney, he used to go to these parks before he even opened his park and just people watch, right? He just people watch. And so he was watching, like, when a person has trash in their hand, how many steps does it take for them to get to the trash can? And he noticed it takes about 30 steps. And if it's anything past 30 steps, people usually throw it on the ground. So if you go into his parks, he intentionally has the trash can set up so that it's easy for that customer experience. And if you go on certain streets, the scents, you can smell the scent of vanilla down some streets, right? And so when you talk about customer service experience, he has nailed it, right? And even his staff, I mean, the actors that are, portraying the princesses and things like that, they have it right. They hug children first. They don't release that hug until the child releases first, like they were so intentional about every single piece of it. So that's what I want, the founders that I work with to know, like, if you could get the customer experience right, that is going to be your advantage by itself. Because I don't know how many times, I don't know about you, I've gone into restaurants and retails and the customer service was horrible. And I know for me that I'm not going to go back to that company. They could have the best product service in the whole world, and I will not go back to that company because the experience was bad. So we focus a lot on that customer experience because it means something. And then we talk about the era of entrepreneurship. We kind of bring that in. But we also look at those older companies as well. If you think about, I just did a piece on this probably a week ago about King Cullen. So there was King Cullen, they had a grocery store, family grocery store for 96 years, and they just recently decided to sell their company to another family-owned company. But it's like we look at that. What can we learn, from even the older companies, the older mom and pop shops that have been around forever? And, a lot of people say, oh, we're their old company, what do they know? But they know so much. When you think about it, how were they able to stay around for all these generations, through depressions and recessions and all the new eras of entrepreneurship? So there's so much that we can learn from them. And once again, it is about the customer experience because those customers have been so loyal to them and they're loyal to their customers that they were able to stay around for so many years. And even though I'm sure there are some generations of families who have brought that through and helped with the different technologies, there's so much to learn from it. So even the founders that I work with, we look at that kind of stuff. We look at past businesses and what can we learn from them. And also just the systems, the technologies, and, trying to be curious enough to know how can I bring these into my businesses? Like, AI, is a big thing right now. Everybody's talking about AI. You kind of either like it or you don't like it. But, I use AI in my business to help me stay productive, not necessarily teaching people how to, you know, um, replace people, hire AI instead of people. We're not doing that, but how are you using it in your business so you can stay productive? So things like that, we bring a lot to the table. So it's a lot, it's not just the regular, okay, let's do this business plan, blah, blah, blah. Like we are looking at a lot to bring businesses to life. It's just me and my husband together. I'm a solopreneur. But that is one of the things that we talked about AI that I use within my company to help me stay productive. I know this sounds funny, but I have an AI staff, an AI staff of 8 people. I have a CEO, a COO, an executive assistant, and we come up with strategies to help build my business. It has been so helpful. I have daily reviews with my AI staff every morning at 8 a.m. And I've used that a lot. I've tried having a co-founder before, but it just didn't align with our priorities and things like that. So I really feel like that I work better being a solopreneur, and I could just go when I want to go and, pivot when I need to pivot. Don't have to ask anybody else. So I've been doing it by myself. Me and my husband, my son has helped with these companies when he can. And, it's just been us.
Gosh.
Serving in excellence has always been huge for me. I'm like always, like military, I go back to my military days because you always had to serve in excellence with that. And just learning from the different leaders of how they, led, and serving in excellence has always been a big thing for me for many years. But, I've always been curious. I've always been a curious person. And I think that's why I, look at all these different companies of how they're building, because I feel like we have so much to learn from. And now just being curious of where, especially like technology is going. Like we are in a new era of entrepreneurship, a new era, period. We've had the era of the internet and, all these different things. And we are literally in a new era. And I'm just curious about, how people are going to build from this, where they're going to take it. So that's why I'm always researching and doing those things like that. But, I don't want to gatekeep on things. You know how people, they have so much information and so much knowledge, but they don't share it. They just leave it to themselves. They're not even willing to even share it with anybody. So I never wanted to be like that. Everything that I've learned, that I know, I would love to teach someone, how to do it as well. So I think that's just who I am, who I've always, who I've always been. I have a Knox journal that I've just recently started, and oh my goodness, I'm so excited about it because I've always wanted to write. And so this part that I could input into my business has been so much fun, just being able to be creative. But that's what we're really talking about in the Knox journal, about the new era of entrepreneurship when it comes to technology, but also the different industries. So we'll be talking about retail and healthcare and how the new era is, moving into those industries as well. I'm going to be talking to founders who are building differently. We're not just talking about, okay, tell us about, what you like, or, we're just talking about how they're building differently. So we're going to be doing that. And it's just started. So those are the beginning phases, and have a little bit of expert advice in there as well. Right now I'm on the cover of it, where I'm answering questions about, why I'm doing this and things like that. So you can check that out. I also have my podcast, Not Here to Play Small, where we're doing the same thing, talking about the new era, but also just kind of showing what I've learned as well. I'm just kind of giving advice on different things like that. We're going to be bringing founders into that, where they're going to be giving advice as well and telling us what they're building and, doing all that. And gosh, we're going to be doing some events here. We got so many things going on. So one of the biggest things that I'm working on is the global Mastermind dinner. that we're going to be starting here soon. I kind of wanted to get through summer because it seems like everybody's so busy in the summer. So I wanted to get through that. And we're going to be doing that where we're taking our mastermind dinners, women founders coming together in all cities, countries, and we are helping each other. And oh my gosh, I've been doing that for a long time, just locally here. And it has just been so amazing. I think the greatest part about the dinners is that people just, they kind of open their eyes to things, we talk about dreaming big, having big goals and taking risks, not being afraid to execute. And I've just watched those women just really come together and have those aha moments in those mastermind dinners and just being able to connect with other women who know what they're going through because I think we need more of that. Sometimes entrepreneurship can be very lonely and you think like you're the only person that's going through these certain situations, but actually you're not. There's so many women who are going through the same things and being able to get those women together in the same room and have a safe space. That's the biggest part. Having a safe space to be able to talk about it has been so great, and I think we definitely need more than that. We can't talk to our clients about the things that we really are going through. And, some people post it on social media, but a lot of us, we don't want to do that. So we really need that safe room to, say, this is actually what I'm going through and not being afraid to talk about money, too. Like this is what I'm going through. I'm not having a good year this year. I need some, body to help me talk through this, and, just putting it out there. So those mastermind dinners are for that. And I'm really excited to be bringing that together. I had an event space and everything where we were doing our mastermind dinners and I was bringing women founders in and I'd loved so much, helping the women that was locally, but I just wanted to broaden that, I just wanted to broaden that because there's so many women all over the world who are looking for, help with building businesses. So even for that, I think it's great. I mean, we do need to help locally as well. But if you do have a service or a product that you can expand globally, I think that's really great as well, because there are so many people who are needing our services and, needing this information, so why not? So I say don't be afraid to do that. The important part is to, with any business that you're running, to make sure your circle is right, to the relationships and everything. That's one of the biggest reasons too why I'm bringing the mastermind dinners in because I feel like, with everything, it's so technical, that we're forgetting about the human connection. So I really am wanting to bring that in. That's why that mastermind dinner is so important to me because we do need human connection. We're so busy in front of our computers and, especially you talk about AI coming in, we're like really losing that human connection. So that's really one of the reasons why. And just, having your circle is so important. The business coaches and the mentors and things like that have been so, so helpful during my own journey. Just being able to talk to someone about what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling is important. And just being surrounded by, whether it's women or men, by the right people who are going to, you know, support you and encourage you and, lift you up and be positive, especially on those times where, you're having challenges in your life, you're having those issues. And I've had the greatest opportunity to be surrounded by the most amazing people. Like, I feel like my circle right now is perfect for me. I feel like it. And it's a long time coming where, just getting rid of the people who just distance myself, I should say, from those people who are the negative Nancy's, that don't really, wow, you're doing this. Is it really going to work out? Those people who have said that. And Now I'm surrounded by the most amazing women who come through the hard times with me. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that building the businesses and doing things has been so easy, because it is not. Me and my husband, we did have a difficult year in one of our businesses, but we were so thankful and grateful to be surrounded by the right people who, prayed for us, before, during, after that's the situations that we had to go through. And we had to distance ourselves from, people who were, bringing the wrong things in our lives, in our businesses and things like that. So I think, for your audience, that's one of the things that you really have to think about when building these goals and building businesses and things like that. Is you got to surround yourself with the right people to make it even work, and we're not made to do business alone. We really have to have those partnerships, friendships, and things like that. And Melanie, you and I have talked, and you've been a great person in my life. That is for sure. You've always supported and encouraged me on this journey, and it's meant the world to me. So I think that's, if anything, just have the right people in your circle, continue to be curious, and it'll lead you the way. I just want women to just, not be afraid to take that risk for what they want, um, don't be afraid of it. Like, sometimes you have to think about what's the worst thing that can happen besides, maybe people saying no. Just start small. I think a lot of us we had that fear because we're thinking about the big picture, but there's so many steps that we have to take to get there. So even if you could just do a small part of it, and it may be just make a phone call, it may just be put the business plan together. Um, I think we think so big and it gets so overwhelming that we just don't do anything. So, what's the worst thing that could happen about making a phone call, and not being afraid if this person that you feel like, oh my gosh, this person is so big and they're not going to want to talk to me. Like, they're just going to say yes or they're going to say no, so not just being afraid to do that. Because as women, I feel like, and I say women because that's my audience, but, we spend so much time that taking care of everybody else, that we don't take care of ourselves, and we don't look into our purpose and passion and things because we're so busy looking at other people's things, whether that's a significant other or children or friends or things like that. We always put ourselves on that back burner, and we don't need to do that, anymore. We don't need to do that. Like, we really need to start living our lives. And I think I say that because life is so short, life is so short that we don't want to look back and be like, gosh, I wish I would have done this or I could have done that. It's so funny, Melanie, because I have talked to some older people, and it's like, okay, what is one thing that you regret or you wish you could have done different or whatever? And most of them always say, I wish I would have done that big thing that I, had in my mind all this time, and to know that, you're older or maybe like on your deathbed or something. And that is something that you are thinking about. Like, I wish I would have done this. Gosh, why not just go ahead and let's just do it now? And it doesn't matter how old you are. I'm in my 50s,
Amen.
or 60s, 70s, 80s. And we should just be doing those things. And, I'm a firm believer of also lifting up our young ladies. That one, that's so huge for me, Melanie, because, I could just remember myself being in school. I went to a really tough high school here where I live. And, we didn't have role models coming into our schools to tell us that we could be anything different than what our environment was. And so, I was so blessed to be able to have great parents who encouraged me and everything, but not everybody has that. So it's like, that's why it's so important for me, having done it recently, but a few years back, and I'm going to start doing it again. Like, I went into those schools to tell them, there, there's so much things that you could do. There's so many different things that you can do besides what is happening, you know, in your neighborhood sometimes, because like I said, those were bad neighborhoods. So I think our young people need to see people like you and me and, others that are building businesses and know that they can too. And being in these industries where, especially young ladies where they didn't think, like I was in the military,
Right.
and during a time when there wasn't a lot of women in the militaries, my father was all like, you don't need to go. He was one of those people telling me that I didn't need to be in the military as a woman. But our young ladies, they need to see those role models. They don't, those ceilings, we say that all the time, those ceilings can be broken and you can do it. So I think that's important as well.
Excellent. Really grateful for you. I thank you for being here. You know, you know. Open invitation wherever
Oh,
I'm at. You
thank
have a seat right
you.
next to me.
Oh my goodness,
I
thank
am
you.
cheering you on.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
thank you so much. And the
You
same as you. I'm your one of your biggest cheerleaders.
phenomenal woman. Phenomenal woman.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Bobby.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to this episode of Hues in Business Podcast, where we're celebrating businesses of color worldwide, sponsored by Melissa.com. Ready?